What's up, guys? She doesn't know she's on. There it is. I was trying to tell you beforehand. You know, you're in the little box there. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is the double shot of Steelers program, and it is going to be an exceptional one. It really will. Even independent of whatever Chris Halleck and I will offer you. Chris will be joining us shortly here. We were over at the Steelers headquarters today for the first day of OTAs, the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. There was some amount of news, not really that much. It was more about just having everybody together. And for me, just getting a feel for, what's happening over there. What's the sentiment? What's the mood? What's especially the Aaron Rodgers vibe and so forth. And I got to tell you, just to get the program started off on a really note, I get the sense that they know, okay, that they know that Aaron Rodgers is coming. I don't get the sense that anybody's ready to, throw some kind of party over it or that they're holding their breath, okay, or anything in between or beyond that. There was a general statement, I guess you could say, from everybody that, we're here to work, we're here to do our own jobs. And that included, by the way, Mason Rudolph, who was there and, had some stuff to say today. We're looking at a situation where he's just going to be in there to do his thing. He's going to just compete the way he always has. He's not treating this camp as anything particularly special. He's not coming in and presuming anything. He's in a good spot, I thought. I had a little bit of a talk with him aside from the media session as well. I see a football team right now that needs an identity, that needs something of an anchor. But I also look at the calendar and I see that it's the 27th of May. I don't know that it matters much, if it matters at all. I had the opportunity today to talk to a bunch of different guys. Ooh, boy, it had to be more than a dozen as they were working their way off the field. Some of them extensively, some of them just real quick. In Minka Fitzpatrick's case, it was just a, hey, nice to see you again. But that's also the way these things go. Haven't seen them in, what is this, 5 months? Yeah, a lot of these guys haven't seen in 5 months. And, you could tell that there was an excitement to be back, but you could also tell that there was a ... with everything that we're doing. We're going to try to line up for you. I thought we had it, the Mason Rudolph video, and put that up for you. But before we get going, just to give you a sampling of one conversation that I had, one of the many, many. This was Patrick Queen, who, if you think about it, is coming in for his first season without having to sweat the green dot and having to learn the defense and how to call it and how to adjust to it, which I know for a fact had just engulfed him in the first month of last season. Here's a little bit of our conversation. I'm going to put it up here for you. Can you imagine how different this season will be for you without having to go through the whole green dot thing again?
Oh, man.
You and I talked about it all last season. Like, yeah, but I'm still like, and I remember you in Las Vegas telling me, like, I'm still working on it and whatever. But now you've been here.
Yeah, it's like second nature now. I mean, I freaking put my helmet on and I just hear them talking. I'm like, okay, cool, we're back to it. So I think that whole year to get used to a new defense, get used to being a signal caller, just all that stuff, I think that's out the window now. I think it's just more time for me to show up every single down, every single game. I think all that stuff's in the past, no more excuses. I just got to be about it.
Just play football.
Yeah, just play football. It's that simple.
You see what I mean? The guy he's just going to work, but he's in a better spot than he was a year ago. I also had a conversation with a certain Roman Wilson that I can't wait to share with you, but I'd be remiss in my getting lots of viewers duties if I didn't throw the tease out and see if you could hang on to a lot later in the program for something specific that he said about this show. I think you'll appreciate it. Yeah, PQ is set up for a big year, says Jay Moods. I would not argue that. I think he's certainly set up for a more comfortable year. Now, to what extent he's going to be hurt by not having a Landon Roberts around, I don't know. To what extent he's going to get help from Cole Holcomb, to what extent Peyton Wilson is going to be able, sorry, I just totally blanked out for a second. Peyton Wilson is going to be able to advance in his own year too. That's going to tell a lot of the tale as well. In addition to how the defensive line in front of the inside linebackers performs. Yes, James Fairfield, I found Roman Wilson. And again, you're going to really enjoy what it was that he had to say. But when we come back, we're going to be joined by Chris Halleck, and we're going to play you that Mason Rudolph video.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Joined now by Chris Halleck. Made it back to, is it Irwin or is it North for Sales or what? What is that?
Penn Township.
I've been there and I just don't know what it is. Yeah, Penn Township. Townships aren't really a real thing though, are they? Like, isn't
no.
a town?
Like my address is Jeanette, but I don't live.
That's just where the post office is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Damian Ellswick says, I think Wilson's going to take a huge step this year, referring to Peyton Wilson here. Next to PQ, I think all of his stats will go up this year by quite a bit, honestly. Well, remember that one of the things that has to happen here, as I just threw out before we went to break, is that the defensive line has to perform at a higher level. If they're doing that, your stats might not spike, and it could be a good thing, right?
Right. I mean, the defensive tackles could rack up some more tackles. But, I mean, at the same time, if the defensive tackles are eating up space and taking on extra blockers and making the double teams harder and make it more difficult for offensive linemen to go onto a double team and then move up to the second level. If they can't get to that second level, then that means the linebackers are then free, which probably means more tackle opportunities. And that sounds really, really good for Deshaun Elliott, who pretty much tackles he gets a tackle every opportunity he gets. And then, obviously Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson and Cole Holcomb, if those guys are not blocked as often, then they're going to have more opportunities to make tackles too.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a vibe today to the defensive guys. I wouldn't go overboard for the same reason that they wouldn't go overboard, which is that it's OTAs and they don't have something, super specific to say, what a day we had. For anybody who said, somebody earlier said that they wish that I was wearing Apple goggles or something so that they could have watched. Here it is right here. Mike says he would have watched OTAs all day. Mike, you would have been bored out of your skull.
Yeah, it's almost like the walkthrough before practices begin at training camp. It's almost like that. It's like a heightened sense of a walkthrough. It's really not much. I mean, yeah, you're going full speed at some things, but this is the first time of this entire process the offense is facing against the defense. And even then, that's only for a very, very small portion of the practice. This is still but there's a reason why these are voluntary. If this was really that important, everybody would be there. They'd make it mandatory. That's not what these are.
Now, mandatory, for anybody who doesn't know, there's one more week of OTAs, and then there's mandatory mini camp that comes up in mid-June. And then after that, it's see you later, everybody, for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Until Latrobe gets started. Mm-hmm. Let's play for everybody this Mason Rudolph clip that we have. It's brief. It's just about the opportunity that he has in front of him right now.
Well, that's nothing new to me. There's been constant noise. That is the nature of the NFL. So I am been used to that for a long time now. Do nothing but be the best I can be and help our team get better this spring.
Have you been in touch with Aaron at all?
I have not. No.
Okay, now he's handling this beauty. I thought he took care of business today.
Very much.
I can also tell you that last whole sequence there, that's rehearsed as hell, man. He's like, what am I going to? Well, constant noise. It's been that way ever since I've been. That's a common theme with him. Like he's not afraid. It's not that he's painting himself as some beleaguered soul or anything like that. He understands he's still pulling in, a few $1 million a year to play football. He's a very, fortunate young man and blessed in a lot of ways. But at the same time, he's not shy about painting his situation as what it is. And he's been that way going back to when he was drafted, and we were all surrounding him saying, you're going to take Ben Roethlisberger's job and everything else here. And he's like, hey, listen, I'm here to just get better and everything else. There wasn't really much else to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's going to handle this the same way that, every single player was handling the Rodgers questions pretty much the same way. But of course, it means a lot more coming from Mason Rudolph, because if Rodgers does not sign, that's the fallback. They could still go and possibly trade for Kirk Cousins. They could sign, Carson Wentz or whoever else. But the fallback has always been Mason Rudolph. And so what he says, answering those questions does matter, and I do think that he's grateful for the opportunity, and, he has a really good opportunity here during OTAs. Granted, not much of one. He's not going to do anything during OTAs that's going to make the Steelers say, you know what, screw Aaron Rodgers. We don't need that. We're just going to roll with Mason. That's not what OTAs is about. Again, if OTAs were that important, everybody would be there. TJ Watt would be there. Everybody else would be there. It's just, that's not what this is about. But I do think it's still a good opportunity for Mason I think he's going to be in a better situation this year regardless, because shoot, man, will this be even if Rodgers signs, will this be the first time he's legitimately the number 2, like unquestioned?
No, he was that under Ben, because that's how he ended up with 2019 when Ben went down. But it was a different kind of backing up. It was, the Steelers really did not ever have a safety net for Ben, because they just saw him as superhuman.
Right.
So, Ben has the elbow issue and he goes down for the year, and it's like, oh my God, now what? Well, they threw the kid out there.
Yeah.
Okay. That was year 2 for Mason, but he no reps, no nothing, before that, at least not, in any kind of anger or whatever.
Yeah.
But this is, Carroll says we can all pull for Mason as much as we want, but the old guy's going to show up at some point. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. I'll tell you what, and I said the same thing to Chris when we were leaving the field today. I kind of got the impression from everybody that they're just waiting for it to happen. It didn't seem like it's some deep, dark mystery to them. It just seemed like, and again, this is reading off vibes and feels and stuff, okay, that it's a matter of time.
That's what I keep telling people. Every time I've gotten a question about it, whether it's live cues on our website or I'm getting texts from relatives of relatives who are Steelers fans, I keep giving the same answer. I really feel like it's a matter of when, not if. And we thought possibly before the draft. That didn't happen. We thought possibly before OTAs. That hasn't happened. Minicamp seems like the first line of demarcation that there should be, because that's the first time anything happens since the end of last season that something is mandatory for the entire team.
And be more specific, because I know what you want to say here. This is the first time that Arthur Smith is distributing the goods.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Meaning the playbook and the installation of the playbook.
Yeah.
And at some point or other, especially if you're new and triply so if you're expected to be the starting quarterback. You got to begin familiarizing yourself with something. People who think that this is all just sandlots and playgrounds and you can just roll out there in the first week of September and play quarterback for somebody just because you have 4 MVPs and you hosted Jeopardy, that ain't it.
Right. I agree with that. And for every team, it's different. Usually the way it goes is the playbook is installed at 3 different portions. It's rookie mini camp because you want to put as much information in the rookies as possible. Mandatory mini camp because that's the first time the entire team they're all together, and then training camp because that's when things really start becoming very, very real.
Swan becomes the first to say to ask about the punters, which makes it near and dear to my heart. Are special teams present at these OTAs? If so, what's the punter situation? Special teams is a loose way of putting it. Danny Smith didn't really do anything that was super organized or whatever. I'm not giving anything away from the practice. But the 2 punters, as Chris and I can attest, since we were down in that end zone watching them, between Cameron Johnston and Corliss Waitman, were just booming. I mean, I thought they were going to poke through the clouds at one point. And I haven't shared this with you yet, Chris, but I had the opportunity and seized it to go shake Cameron Johnston's hand. I hadn't seen him since that day.
Yeah, seriously.
I don't think many had really an opportunity to even say, wow, that's too bad that you got, because the season was going so well. And I'm sorry, I cannot get past when I'm talking to him. And I don't know who can or how. That he doesn't look like Bill Burr. He is Bill Burr. And I'm just waiting for him to do the airline skit. They're waiting to get on board the plane. It was great to see him. He had no, and I'm taking this from talking to him. I'm not reporting stuff I saw in practice, blah, 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 following the rules. Nothing on his leg, no braces, no nothing. He said he is just feeling great. He's strong. He's healthy. He can't wait to get going. That was one of the more uplifting things today. And having both of those guys in camp, look, you're not going to keep 2 punters, okay?
Yeah.
But it's still pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. And I think another thing, and I know he's been out there working with the team in all the OTAs that have been happening since then. You have phase 1 and phase 2 of the offseason program. Today's the beginning of phase 3, which is like your on-field full OTAs. You can do 11 on 11, stuff like that. But seeing Cole Holcomb out there after everything that he's gone through with the rehab process, I mean, you get, Jose was with us reporting on the South Side, and he's getting familiarized with everything, with the history of the team and each player. It's a lot to take in. And he was like, when did Cole Holcomb get injured? I was like, dude. And he said, like last year. I'm like, no,
it's been a while.
2023.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't played since middle of 2023. Like it's been a long time coming for him. And it looks completely different. Mullet's gone. Like that mullet's been there for a long time. I'm really curious to see how he's going to actually look whenever we start to see real football activity in the probe.
In his case, too, Chris, it'll be all about health because we know what he can do.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
As a football player. Frank Rice says, hey, DK and Chris, has any wide receiver stepped up, showing that they have the potential to be that WR2? I'll repeat my stance that WR2 is not in this fold. I'll also stress here that as encouraging as Roman Wilson's offseason has been, from the health perspective, from the strength perspective, he looks different.
He does.
And I'm going to tell you this, too. I don't know if you had a chance, Chris, because the 3 of us, you mentioned Jose Negron was helping us over there because you need a lot of reporters for an event like this. Bounce around. If you had a chance to get over to Roman at all.
I did not. No, I was caught up with other guys.
I had a good talk with Roman. I'm sharing some fun thing about Roman, by the way, at the end of this show. That means you're stuck watching the whole thing now. And he sounds different. There was a little bit more of a joy to him as opposed to sounding as uptight as he did last season. Even before he got hurt, he always seemed to be kind of tightly wound. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I know exactly what you're saying because I remember interviewing him a couple of different times last year, and it was not one of the more interesting interviews.
It's tough. Yeah. And not that we should ever judge anybody based on how they interview, but you can also sense that there's a little bit more something to him right now. He's ready to be that guy.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of cool. Now, that said, he doesn't profile as the WR2 in the Arthur Smith offense. I will continue to insist, demand that Omar Khan follows through and goes out there. He doesn't have to replace George Pickens, but he does have to replace the slot.
Yeah, I do think there were a couple different times I watched Roman Wilson specifically on a play. I didn't care if he was the target or not, just to see how he was moving. He moved. There was one time I remember, I can't get into specifics. I can't, sorry.
Don't. I know what you want to say here. I saw the same sequence.
Yeah.
Let's just say that if we were allowed to report that he torched a certain somebody who shall not be named, and the whole thing is hypothetical. We're not really sharing any of this with you. And by the way, the ball didn't even get thrown his way.
It did not. So, but still,
that's the kind of thing that you're looking for.
Yeah. Like, how is he moving? How is he going in and out of breaks? And where is he lining up? And again, can't go into specifics without getting it verbally confirmed by a player. But he is one of the ones I am most intrigued to watch during training camp whenever we can report everything we're seeing, because practices are open to the public. So there's no secrecy over where he's lining up or anything like that. We can report everything we see. I'm very, very excited to see Roman. He's going to be top 3 of my list to watch in training camp.
And the two of us are not alone in this one. Way, way, way more important than what we think.
Oh yeah.
The people in charge over there are stoked.
100%. Dale asking if Aaron, if there's a chance that Aaron has the playbook already.
No. None. Zero. He's not signed. He's not a Steeler.
Yeah, I don't think you can give the playbook to.
I don't think I would give the playbook if I could.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to have some sort of gentleman's agreement, like a napkin agreement or something like that, in order for something like that to happen.
Yeah, no chance. And then what happens? He signs with.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
No. Raul says to hell with everybody. He wants Duck back and he wants Mark Malone, because we can't be serious about anything here. Rod reminds everybody to hit the like button. By the way, that's not like a vanity exercise. When you do that, it helps the algorithm of the live show, and then YouTube actually will show it to more people, which is kind of good. That's what
we're wanting to do.
Yeah, it's part of the objective here. Mike asks, do you think that Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson will split WR2 and 3? That's a good question, because, we can't keep saying that the WR2 isn't in the house, but then not distinguish between what's 3 and what's 4, or will they split it? We say all these positive things about how the coaching staff is feeling about Wilson at the moment, but they felt this way for a while about Cal.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the other thing I really want to keep stressing here about the receiver position, especially whenever you have a bona fide number 1 receiver, your typical traditional X receiver, which the Steelers have in DK Metcalf. Everybody else, like Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, Robert Woods, these guys are versatile weapons. They are versatile receivers. You don't just fit them into one role. They can play the Z receiver, the other outside receiver that lines up with the strength of the formation. They can line up in the slot and play out of the slot. They can do a number of different things. Now, Roman Wilson was primarily a slot receiver for Michigan, but that doesn't mean that he's completely incapable of ever lining up on the outside. You can run certain formations, more condensed formations, in which he's playing closer to the offensive line, and it's almost like he's lining up out of the slot. So there's a number of different ways that you can use receivers nowadays. It doesn't have to be the traditional one guy on one side, one guy on the other side, one guy in the slot, and boom, there you go. There's a number of ways you can do it.
Dave Shipley's testing us here. He says, I'm glad there's nobody who showed up out of shape. And there we go to break.
Yeah.
Look, it happens. Okay?
You'll see in Latrobe. That's all I can say.
Because that's not going to change by Latrobe. All right. We're not going to get into a whole lot of specifics here, mostly because of the reporting rules as it relates to practice. Eric Shulo says, how did Fautanu look? Did you see him out there? Fautanu was there. Fautanu spoke with reporters afterward. I got there really late, and all I heard from him is that he's 100%. He's a full go, and that's supported by what we saw. Now, again, how does someone look in these settings? I beg of everyone to understand that these are not interesting. These are not compelling drills. This is not Latrobe. In fact, to convince you, here's 30 seconds of sights and sounds that our staff shot. And I'm going to tell you, warn you in advance here, this is really boring. This is like catatonically dull. Okay, here goes. Woo! Steven Spielberg, eat your heart out, huh?
Yeah, you're not, especially when it comes to the offensive lineman and defensive lineman. There is literally
no contact.
Nothing that they could show in a situation like this that could make you think one thing or the other. That, oh my, they've got to show up like 5,000 pounds overweight and can't move one foot in front of the other in order to be like, yeah, okay, maybe they're not so, like, maybe that's looking pretty bad. But everything else, man, like, you just can't see this time.
Eric Shulo's pushing, man. Any players look different, changed body, bigger, smaller, etc.
We get them on video, during the period in which we can shoot. Even then, it's part of the rules to be like, hey, look how out of shape this guy is in the video. We can't even do that. It's just look at the video.
Well, the other thing you have to be careful about in terms of reporting who's in shape, who's out of shape, and whatever else and stuff like that is you also don't ever know if there's a position switch involved, which is something else that we broached in our own observations today here. Michael Patrick McCracken points out that our Matt Williamson breaks down stats for us at DK Pittsburgh Sports. Do the coaches look at advanced analytics also? The Steelers have access to advanced analytics. I don't hear tales of those being utilized. That doesn't mean that they aren't. But remember that when you get into analytics, you're not just talking about game situations and, tendencies that NFL teams have. A lot of what you're doing is at the amateur level, the college level. It's preparation for the draft. My understanding, and I'm open to being mistaken on this because this is dated by about 3 or 4 years, is that the advanced analytics that the Steelers use principally are related to the college draft. They're not so much at, how often are the Ravens going to run up the gut on you and stuff like that. Yeah. That's going to be the more old school, sitting there, plopping yourself down with a tub of popcorn and watching hours and hours and hours of film.
Yeah, and I mean, Mike Tomlin every now and then during the season will drop a nugget, like a statistical nugget, and usually it's after the game, not before the game, because why would he tip his hand on any kind of game planning whatsoever before a game? But like, for example, I remember after the Atlanta game last year, he talked about, how well Kirk Cousins was against the blitz and why they might not have blitzed so much because of that, so certain things like, yes, they pay attention to a lot of different stats that help tell a story that doesn't show up on a box score. So yes, that stuff does happen. Now, how much do they invest and a lot of stats that are still kind of going through what's valid, what's not. Like Pro Football Focus is very, very controversial because some of their stats are really, really useful, and some of them pass rush win rate. I gotta say, I just have to say that one stat, drop the mic. There are some people that live and die by that stat, and there are some people that think it's an absolute fart. So,
Well, everybody who likes the stat lives in the Cleveland metro area. The best as I can tell here, John Malesko says, who's got the bigger chip on their shoulder, Jalen Warren to prove he's an RB1, or a player like Trey Sermon who's trying to make the 53? You're leaving Caleb Johnson out of there. I don't know Sermon. I know Jalen really well, and I've only got to have one opportunity to speak with Johnson briefly. Jalen Warren does not lack intrinsic fire.
no,
Okay, this isn't something that he has to struggle to manufacture.
No.
It's there. Now, Jalen did not have an opportunity to speak with us today. Apologize for it. He actually had to run in and take care of some business. That happened to Broderick Jones as well.
Mm-hmm.
But Jalen's there, and Jalen's doing his thing. And when Jalen gets a chance to speak, you're not going to hear any of what I just said, because that's also not him. Okay. Yeah. He's the most humble and everything guy that you would hope that he'd be based on whatever your impression would be of him. But I'll throw this out just for fun. I asked Beanie Bishop a question about the battles that he's going to face,
Mm-hmm.
as the slot corner on the team. And, he threw out a couple of names, and then he threw out a couple of more. He threw out guys that don't have a prayer, but they're in there. And he said, I have to know this. I have to be aware of this. You know what? He said, I'm undrafted. I'm going to carry that with me forever. How often do you guys hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Regarding undrafted players? You hear it from Ramon Foster on our channel every week, and it's been 15 years since Ramon was maligned the way he was. He's the one that got 11 years as a starter in the NFL. These guys hang on to it. They never let it go. Jalen's going to want this, and he's going to want it bad, but you're not going to hear it from him.
No, and that's just it's just the way he operates. He's not he doesn't like to bring a lot of attention to himself, and that's just something that you really respect about for players nowadays, because you'd think a lot of players, especially if you were a success story going undrafted to becoming a legitimate player in the league, there's a lot of reason to possibly make yourself some more money by making yourself into a bigger deal than maybe you even actually are. But that's not Jalen. Jalen is very, very humble, and again, he does not need any extra motivation or any bigger chip on his shoulder. And there's always a chip on their shoulders. Sorry, there's always a chip on your shoulder if you're trying to make a 53-man roster. You have to have it, or you won't make it.
You won't make it. Yeah. Unless you're just walking on a beach somewhere.
Right.
Mark Cunningham says Caleb Johnson looks like an NFL running back to me for sure. Oh, yes, he does. And boy, I don't want to keep doing this because it's like there's so much stuff that we want to say from today, but we're not going to. Let's just say that they could use him in a multitude of ways this season. Okay.
Yeah.
Multitude.
Yeah.
Of ways. And that some of the various Le'Veon Bell comparisons that have been made by some, including this guy over here, might just come to pass.
Might. It's one day of OTAs. We'll see what happens whenever we get training camp. To me, is the real first look at the team. I mean, this right here. There's so much that even I love what Cam Hayward said today, by the way, when
about the OTAs.
Yeah, he just poured water on everybody's excitement about attendance for OTAs.
Who's there and who's not. Yeah, his best point, I thought, Cam's, was when he said, I didn't come to any OTA sessions last year. And it was his way. I mean, he had a phenomenal year. It was his way of saying, I didn't need it.
And he's not the first one. I mean, Troy Polamalu never went to OTAs.
No.
Ever. I mean, that's just some players don't need it. Some players do better working out on their own. This is not.
And yet at the same time, here's Minka Fitzpatrick showing up today, which he was really low on my list. Matthew asks if TJ showed up. No, TJ did not show up. But again, it doesn't mean anything. There's no statement being made by not showing up. And remember, too, that some guys, this is something that does not get shared often enough with the Steelers fan base, I think. There's a lot who do know this, but Mike Tomlin actually asks some veterans to not come.
Yeah.
He'll say, I need to get a look at this kid in reps. And if you're here, all due respect, I know you're working. I know who you are. Just stay out. Okay. He'll actually do that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know who he does it with and who he doesn't do it with, and he's not about to share. So that gets left, cleverly enough up to our imagination. But don't be thinking that TJ is this or that. Again, mini camp is mandatory. If number 90 isn't there for mini camp, there's a headline to be had.
Oh, there's a headline to be had, and there's a fine to be paid as well. Because
there's that too. Yeah, mandatory means mandatory.
Yeah,
he's under contract. He's not some free agent or something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, and usually the way whenever there's a contract, if the contract negotiation becomes part of what him showing up, not showing up, you'll find out at minicamp. If he's not there at minicamp, you definitely know it's part of it because he's willing to pay money to send a message. But he could also show up to minicamp and be like, okay, I'm here, but do the whole Holden thing, just not participate in anything.
Jackson says, I like this, is what creates a special arm? When you hear that Will Howard doesn't have a strong arm, but then you see that he's 6'4" with huge thighs, can you work into having one? Why do some smaller quarterbacks have cannons? Before I throw this to you, Chris, because I know this is a subject that's near and dear to your heart, the gifted arm thing. I'm going to throw a baseball parallel in.
Yeah.
Because the size, yes, it can make a difference. Look at Paul Skeens. He's gigantic. He has long limbs. He has lots of moving parts. He and I were just having a conversation about this on Sunday over at the ballpark, just about the work that he has to do in terms of maintaining his motions and whatever. But he understands, and said so, that he benefits from all that ridiculous torque the same way that Randy Johnson did at his ridiculous height. Randy Johnson, once he figured it out, it wasn't until after he left Montreal, but once he did, he became the big unit.
Right.
Whereas you can see someone like Jared Jones, who's a much smaller guy, and now obviously and unfortunately had the Tommy John surgery. He uses that compactedness, but he has the special arm. It's lively. It's got those the baseball people call them twitch muscles. Okay, that's usually something that a shortstop works on. But there's a gift. There's just an explosiveness to it and to what he does. Quarterbacks, it's not so much about size, length, and whatever. It really is just about the arm, isn't it?
It is, and I hate to put a lot of it on just what they were naturally born with, but a lot of it is what they were naturally born with. Because you have some big guys, some big quarterbacks who just who have maybe average arms. Now, not saying that you can't, make your arm a little bit better. For sure, you can. You can improve your mechanics. You can. Even Tom Brady, from the time he entered the league to the time that he became, like Tom Brady at the height of his powers, he threw the ball differently. He was more mechanically sound with his lower body, with just every little part of his entire throwing motion. You can make all of that better to make yourself a more accurate quarterback, or even improve your arm strength a bit. When we're talking about sheer arm talent, it's not a question of what you can do when you're throwing what's called on platform, when you are throwing out of your bait, when you can drop back, hit your fifth step, and either make your throw or hitch and then make your throw. It is all about what your arm can do when you are in less than ideal situations.
That's where everybody should have images of Patrick Mahomes coming up to their heads.
Patrick Mahomes, Terry
Because
Bradshaw, John Elway,
there
Aaron Rodgers.
There are throws that have to be made that get made.
Yes.
Because they can make them. And when you see somebody fire it through a hole or a threading the needle type of pass through a couple of guys that makes it into your guys' hands, those are the kinds of throws that we're talking about. But that can't happen without that little extra oomph to that arm. Vegas says that, Will Howard's mechanics will get better. They can.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can teach.
Yep.
No, I'm gonna call him an old dog. He's a rookie, but you can teach players certain skill sets. You can teach them how to strengthen an arm. All of that can be part of conditioning. It can be something that goes into how do you strengthen your shoulder that's specifically aimed at making football throws better. You hear Mike Tomlin talk about it all the time, about there's shape, there's college shape, and then there's NFL shape.
Yeah, for sure. And people like Alan will bring up, like Peyton Manning didn't have a cannon arm. Well, every quarterback has their strengths. Peyton Manning's wasn't his arm. It was all up here.
Certainly wasn't at the end.
No, especially not. When he won the Super Bowl with the Broncos in 2015, his arm was gone. But no, his superpower was all up here. It was what he could see pre-snap and everything that he could diagnose what the defense was doing before the ball was even snapped, and he knew exactly how to attack it. I can't think of a quarterback that was better before the snap than Peyton Manning, and that's one of the main reasons why he is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But then there are quarterbacks such as Aaron Rodgers, who at the height of his powers could make any throw from any stance, on whether it's on platform, off platform, throwing against his body, didn't matter. He has a top 3, top 5 arm of all time, and that's the reason why he's a 4-time MVP.
Yeah, Frank Gray says that Mason Rudolph has a cannon. Mason has an arm that even back when he was in college, and I cite this example a lot, but when he and James Washington were over here at what used to be called Heinz Field, just scorching Pitt repeatedly, it was just an endless series of bombs. And, James did his part. It wasn't all Mason. Okay. James very much did his part back when James was still seen as a thing.
Yeah.
And you saw that gets more, the terminology that gets associated with that more than anything is big arm. You have the arm that can make the big, deep throws. I think what we're talking about here is different. The kinds of throws we're talking about are those really tight windows where it has to go at 100 billion miles an hour to get where it's going to go. Now, we've seen Mason make those, but we also saw, especially early in his NFL career, where the short game was a problem for him.
Yeah.
And he'd be the first to tell you that. The short game was a problem. He eventually strengthened that.
Yeah, I think the one thing that we should probably also talk about when it comes to this particular subject is it's not just arm strength. Because when you talk about just arm strength, I mean, Ben Roethlisberger is going to be up there with one of the strongest arms of all time. When he reared back to try to fit it into a tight window on a slant near the goal line, he was among the best of being able to get it there in the least amount of time. The other part of it is how could you make certain types of throws in which there's just the perfect amount of touch on it, but also with a good amount of velocity? Because there's a lot of quarterbacks who don't have the arm talent, strength, whatever you want to talk about, to make touch throws that also have velocity, because there are certain layered throws. The one that sticks out to my mind immediately is only because it's the most fresh in my mind because of watching, doing all the film work and doing chalk talks, was when I was watching stuff from Aaron Rodgers last season, down the stretch, rolling out to his right, has to make a throw where he goes almost kind of against his body, and it's got just enough height to go over all the hands that could possibly get on it, and then it just drops right to where his receiver was in the back of the end zone, 30 yards downfield. That's not teachable. That kind of stuff's not teachable. You either have that or you don't. Now, you can make your throws better again, with better mechanics and stuff, but there are certain types of throws that only certain guys can ever make. And that's why those guys become 4-time MVPs, or Tom Brady wins multiple Super Bowls, or whatever else.
And one of the great underappreciated aspects of Ben Roethlisberger's throwing is what Denny brings up here, is that touch to drop it in the bucket, man.
And he had that too.
There's nothing that would melt the home crowd quite like one of those that would land in somebody's basket, right?
Yeah.
Those were a lot of fun to watch here. John Gowan points out here that Mason made some fantastic throws to Pickens on the sideline. I thought Mason's sideline throws in that stretch in 2023 were probably the most underappreciated aspect of what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, those were just getting nailed. Toddy says AI does not yet understand how to pronounce Sade. We will be okay for a few more years. You're referring to Sade, the singer, I presume. Smooth operator, right? Get back to me on that one. I think that's who we're talking about, because if so, that makes me smarter than AI, because I said Sade the first time. Come on, somebody come at me here. Come at me with Sade here. Don't make me sing Smooth Operator. I already tried a Chewbacca imitation.
That you did.
Jeff Rossi is like, is there another Sade? No, but what if someone looks at that word and says Sade?
Yeah.
I don't even know what the hell this subject is about. How did this even happen here?
I have no idea. Sometimes the chat just goes while we talk.
Sean Evans says no one had the pump fake that Ben did either. Hey, as long as we're on a Ben roll here, let's remind everybody why Kenny Pickett will never be able to pull off that pump fake.
Big hands. Big hands. You got to have big hands if you want to do that. That's also why hand sizes made a thing. By the way,
John Baker. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I'll say like the bare minimum for a quarterback in the NFL is like 9 inches. If it's anything less than 9 inches, and that's what Kenny Pickett's are. They're less than 9.
All we need is Steve Carell here with a. That's what she said. John Baker says that's instinct, just like Ben to Holmes in the Super Bowl. You know, the best thing about Ben and Holmes
of all time. Yeah. So I was just saying, one of the greatest throws of all time. That's.
I never ever reduced that drive to a single play. I don't care how spectacular it was. That to me was all about the entire drive.
Oh yeah.
And one of the best things about Ben's career was that when he would find the hot hand, whoever it was, whatever position it was, he couldn't care less. He would just sledgehammer that option.
Yeah.
Are you ready, Tone? You ready to take us to the championship? You ready, Tone?
Yeah.
I mean, Santonio's told this story many times. You ready, Tone? And he's like, Holmes, to his inestimable credit, you know, one of the most heroism is a tough word to use in sports, but let's just go with it. Okay. One of the most heroic performances between the two of them, what they did on that drive. And it was the two of them.
Yeah.
Because Santonio made not just that last catch, he made some other catches on that drive. And it was just boom, 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 boom. That's what makes Ben, in so many ways, the ultimate Pittsburgh quarterback, was that he carried himself that way.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care if it worked. I don't care if it's predictable. They can't stop it.
Well, that's whenever you know you're a great offense. Whenever the other team knows what's coming and they still can't stop it. That's what makes Alex Ovechkin the greatest goal scorer. Not to switch sports.
Can't stop it. Yeah.
You know exactly. Every time Washington went on the power play, you know exactly where Alex Ovechkin's going to be. He's going to be at the top of the left circle every single time. He's going to fire off a one-timer, and you still can't stop it. Like, that's whenever you know you are a special either player or a special unit. Whenever you can literally line up and tell the defense what you're going to do, and you still execute it.
Oh, and then there's the ultimate example of that, which was the Steelers calling that same run play for Le'Veon Bell in Cincinnati like 7 times in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, they might as well have just been lining up in the huddle and giving the finger to the other side. You know?
Yeah.
Hey, guys, you'll never guess what play we're running next. Because they could.
That's what it could. Yep. Execution always beats anything that you could possibly see or even know before the snap.
Is Toddy coming at me with alternate Sade titles? Is that what that is? Or is this just another "that's what she said" line? Oh my God, he was drinking something too.
I was drinking water. You're
Okay.
mean.
Sorry.
You're mean.
Chloe Smith says, yeah, miss you, Ben. I mean, Ben, the quarterback, for the better part of a decade and a half was about as good as it gets. And it probably felt like through a lot of that time that quarterback was just never going to be an issue again in our lifetime because of that.
When you have a franchise quarterback, life is a lot more simple. But when you don't have one, this is what the Steelers are going through right now. This is what you go through. You have to throw a lot of stuff up against the wall again. Look at all the guys that played between Bradshaw and Ben. Not all of them were bad. There were some pretty good quarterbacks in that, but none of them were the kind of guy that you would build a franchise around. And then the second Bill Cowher gets Ben Roethlisberger, 15-1 the first year, and then Super Bowl trophy the next year. I mean, it just sometimes that's all you need is that franchise quarterback to help get you over the top, and that's what the Steelers are wanting to do. But they don't have one this year. Maybe Will Howard turns into one, maybe Mason Rudolph turns into one, but you got to be ready to go get one in the draft, and that's what they're doing. That's what the plan's been. Omar's been pretty upfront about that without actually saying it.
Right. You guys keep coming up with these Sade. I knew she did Smooth Operator. I don't know of any other Sade songs, and I can't believe that you guys are throwing out Sade songs here like they're a thing. What the heck? Ben wasn't just a franchise, says Jared. He was a perfect quarterback for Pittsburgh. Big, tough, kind of awkward winner. Ben, that's actually I don't think he means as a quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah.
John Gowan asks if it's a crime to be citing other Sade songs. No. I just didn't know they existed. This is not a knock. I don't have any problem with Smooth Operator. I've just never heard anything else. Sade is fire, says Michael Parks here today on our Sade episode, which we thought was going to be our OTAs episode. Anything else make an impression on you today, Chris?
I'm glad. I was glad to hear the number of players. Now, granted, PR definitely sat down with the players before, and definitely told them.
Yes.
When there's a situation looming and continuing to go on, the PR is gonna work on that with the players. But still, there's preparing them, and then there's actual execution of it. And knowing the players from talking with them, I'm glad to see, and I think it's genuine, that they are really not letting this Rodgers stuff bother them. I don't get that sense. I did not get that sense today that they're just sitting there being like, I can't believe that we're still talking about this. You guys are asking questions. They're just kind of like, all right, I'll answer the question, and just we'll move on. We have faith in Mason. That is consistent with everything that I've heard from the inside when people are not talking, on the record. They're telling you things on background and stuff like that. I liked the calm. It's almost like a calm confidence, and that's hard to do after you get emasculated over the last 5 games of a previous season.
Vegas says that Sade is 66 and that she looks damn good for 66.
It's a good number.
I know so little about this. I can't believe this has somehow invaded this program. Mark Cunningham says, I fell in love with Sade as a grown man. Sounds better than Chewbacca, says. Certainly sounds better than my Chewbacca. Shush Math wants to know, did Will Howard throw to all the wide receivers today? We're not again, this isn't something that per the agreement that's made between the Steelers and the local media. By the way, for anybody who ever wonders about that.
Yeah, somebody asked about it. Probably should explain it.
Yeah, what it is that for a lot of NFL teams, and I've been in these settings myself, they don't let you watch practice at all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the late Dan Rooney believed in as much access as possible, had a tremendous relationship with the media. Art Rooney has continued that, hadn't changed a thing, including even during COVID when everybody was seizing every opportunity to shut reporters out.
Yep.
Art still had our back. When you're talking about practices and stuff, that's why they reach an agreement where they say, listen, we'd let the people who cover the team regularly in, okay, the ones who are here.
Mm-hmm.
You come in and watch, and what we can do is if we see something, we can ask that player. It's a stupid sounding question, but the players are used to it. Did I see that thing that I saw? And they say, oh, yes, as a matter of fact, you did see that thing that you saw. Or if it's a sly veteran who knows what you're up to, they'll say, that thing that you saw, you didn't see that thing that you saw. And they know, and especially that's on a game week, they really don't want you to know certain things, and the players see right through you, the older guys. I actually had a player say exactly that to me. It was a wide receiver.
That's funny.
A little bit older, yeah. And that's a great way to handle it.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
The thing is we will take this over just being shut out. We will take we will see things that occur that might not make it out to you, but one way or another, they kind of eventually will.
Yeah, and I think obviously the main, if you're asking why don't NFL teams allow that? Well, imagine if reporters had complete access to report everything they saw in practice.
Oh, do you guys want that? Go ahead and answer. Do you want us to put that out there? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. Do you want us to be putting everything that the Steelers are doing in their game plan for the upcoming game? Because then the opponent knows everything that's going on at Steelers practice.
Because what'll happen is we're sitting there at a game, Chris and I, and the Steelers are down at the 2-yard line, and you'll see a certain formation, and we'll say to each other, oh, here comes that thing they worked on in practice. Sure enough, here comes this crazy thing, and we know it, and we could have told everybody, but didn't.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's definitely something. So that's why you have to get something verbally confirmed, or if it's something you see during the time in which we're allowed to shoot video or take pictures, that's whenever you're allowed to not, because you can see it and like you can see with the video that's going to be posted. Other than that, somebody goes down with an injury, like you have to ask a player or have to ask that player, did you injure yourself, or anything like that. So it's just the way it is. And I think the only reason why training camp is different is because practices are open to the public. Anybody can walk up to the field and watch the practice.
And that's
the reason why we can talk about it all the time. Hey, Roman Wilson's lining up with the starters and he's lining up as primarily the Z receiver when they're in 11 personnel. Whatever it is, you can say all this stuff because everybody else can see it. But during these practices, the OTA stuff like that, this is all closed to the public, so we play by the rules.
Ronald French wants to know who some of my favorite punk bands are. I mean, I actually have a really long list here. I'm not going to bore everybody with here. I mean, when you get to punk, you're talking about the Pistols, and then you're talking about pretty much everything else. Mm-hmm. I get that part, especially when it comes to British punk. The Clash graduated from punk so quickly that I don't want to throw them into that. I mean, you go from their first album to London Calling in a span of 2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Only the greatest album that's ever been recorded by anybody. But my own is the Dead Kennedys. And I don't think they have a peer. And I'm not just saying that because they're the greatest American punk band of all time. It's not a country thing. The Kennedys just did some of the most intelligent, energetic, off the freaking charts punk that anybody's ever made and anybody ever will make. You're not a punk guy.
I dabbled in a little.
Don't say Green Day. We disown anybody who throws Green Day into the punk thing. Okay, that is pop.
No.
That is pop.
It's pop. No, I think pop punk is its own thing. That's Green Day, Blink-182, Yellow Card, like
pop.
That's pop punk.
It's not true.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I love me some pop. Yellow Card is one of my favorite bands, and so is Blink-182. But that's also goes to show my age because that's whenever like those bands started becoming really popular. But no, I've always been more of a metal guy than a punk guy. We had this conversation during our trip to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to Cleveland. We talked about a lot of punk and a lot of metal.
We talked about a lot of bands that are not in the Rock Hall who really ought to be. And then the one that just floors me, and I know there's always one, there's always one band that everybody says that there's just no way they shouldn't be in or that they aren't in.
Yeah.
My current one, this isn't anything to do with punk. I can't wrap my head around Blue Oyster Cult not being it.
I know. I remember when I mentioned it, you were like, what?
And then I had you Google, like, there's no way that's actually true. How does BOC not get in? All BOC ever needed to do was Don't Fear the Reaper, and they could have called it a career.
Yep.
And they should have had their own wing in the Hall of Fame just for Reaper. But then Will Ferrell grabs a cowbell.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's so good.
Like, he grabbed a cowbell, and Christopher Walken admonished him that he needed more cowbell.
Good stuff.
Okay.
It's
like
phenomenal.
how do you not put that in? How do you not just say that this is I mean, it's not like Blue Oyster Cult didn't have other hits.
Yeah.
Burnin' For You is actually technically a bigger hit.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're talking about like charting.
Yeah.
But they did Don't Fear the Reaper.
Yeah.
I think there's another crazy one. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, mine personally is Iron Maiden. I still cannot believe Iron Maiden's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But I think the other one that floored us was Kansas.
Oh, yeah. Not just saying that because we had representatives from Kansas come in here into the shop this last summer, the day that they played here in Pittsburgh, and they were kind enough to give tickets to go see them. And you're seeing Dust in the Wind and Carry On Our Wayward Son. I can't let it escape that they're not in a Rock Hall. Who the hell is? And then you look at the list of some of the ones that are in, and you're like, why don't they just change the name of the thing? Like some of our commenters will say. Mark Cunningham says BOC is going to get in. Based on what? How
They
long
should
is it
already
gonna
be
take?
in.
They don't even come. Yeah, they don't even come up.
They should already be in.
Now you start getting me on the stuff that I was passionate about, the Devo and the B-52s and so forth, that'll just have no chance. I see a lot of metalheads bringing up Iron Maiden, and I think Iron Maiden is.
So I was just saying, DV said Maiden asked to never be considered by the Rock Hall. Okay, well, fine.
Johnny Rotten said the same thing. Don't ever put us in. And then when they did put the Pistols in, it was against their will. And he said that he was going to urinate on the document when they sent it to them and everything. He actually did. He didn't use those terms either.
Yeah, it's to me, it's still like, again, I'm a metal guy. Iron Maiden's one of those ones that I go back to when you talk about like metal, like from back in the day, like
metal.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely more of a more modern metal guy, like more like 90s and 2000s is more my speed because that's what I grew up listening to, especially more 2000s because that's when I was in high school. But I have a lot of respect for a lot of the bands that came before them, and Iron Maiden's one of them.
The last thing I have to close out this show, because we've already gone on too long, especially on this nonsense. I went down a rabbit hole the other night, and I ended up somehow getting to Judas Priest's induction.
Oh, wow.
They're my favorite metal band.
Yeah.
Okay. And I say because I learned how to play all their stuff on the guitar and everything, right? Okay. Yeah. I was just so into Priest and playing Electric Eye and Green Manalishi and all the other great Priest songs, right? Which are phenomenal to play on guitar. So much fun, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought, let's just see how they reacted because the metal bands have this real edge about the Rock Hall. Like they just feel like they're more slated than any other, right? Am I right? All right. So they have Alice Cooper, of all people, introducing Priest, right? But instead of saying Judas Priest, he introduces each of them by name: Rob Halford, KK Downing. He just goes through all their names, right?
Yeah.
And they start with Breaking the Law. Okay. And if you guys haven't heard Breaking the Law, you have to put it on after this. Okay. But put it on like 11. Okay, like Spinal Tap 11, right?
I just don't know how you can listen to metal when it's not on 11, but yeah, I get your point.
Breaking the law has to be it has to be breaking your eardrums. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was the most uncompromising, no nonsense rock hall thing ever. And the crowd, these people are wearing like suits and ties. They can't resist. They're jumping up and down, breaking the law, breaking the law. It was fantastic. And like Rob Halford's like in his 70s or something.
That's awesome. That's really, really awesome.
Anyway, guys, stay with. We have a special Roman Wilson thing right after this. Chris is going to stay with us. Chris is going to stay here. All right, so you guys went through all that music stuff, and you're going, "Come on, man! Can you just say the Roman Wilson thing?" You're teasing this. It better be good, right? And yes, they did. You got another thing coming. That was the third of the 3 songs that they did. Living After Midnight was second. All right. Wilson gets done with his little media things, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
And he comes walking my way, and we just have a real quick conversation.
Yeah.
Just in general, just about, I said something about how great he looks and everything else. It's good to see him out there healthy and all that other stuff. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he says something nice back, whatever. We get done, and I say, "Hey, by the way, all these people who are watching our show or listening to our show in the afternoon," I go, "all they want to hear about is you." And he goes, "Oh, I know about it." and I go, "So that's the answer to where Roman Wilson has been all along. God. He's one of you. He's been hiding in literal plain sight."
That's hilarious. That's awesome.
That's like my favorite thing that happened today. But awesome. The part that I like, yes, he heard all of your stupid Roman Wilson jokes.
Okay? Do you guys think that this is not visible to everybody?
I mean, it's open in public, right? So out of the 2,021 people that we have with us live right now, all it takes is one to be Roman Wilson, right?
That's funny. That's awesome.
So the point that I came back, because he looked like he had to get into the weight room, whatever. And I said, "Hey, you got to understand that all of that's positive. The vibe that I get from Pittsburghers and from you guys is that they're waiting on you. They're not mad. They're not, they're just impatient. They expect a lot of you." And he said, "Well, I expect a lot out of myself, so I appreciate that." So that's actually really cool. And yes, Donnie, it was the real Roman Wilson. It wasn't like one of those Vladimir Putin doubles that they sent to the front lines. This was real. This was real. I have no idea if he's sitting at the uncle's table or not. No clue.
That we don't know. And he's not gonna come on and say, "Yeah, I'm username, blah, blah, blah." Like, I don't know. Maybe he will. Maybe we'll.
This would be great if he was asking Roman Wilson questions in the third person.
That would be amazing. Seriously. This is going to be my favorite thing to talk with him about, like, throughout the entire season.
But the thing that's really cool, though, Chris, is that he does have a general understanding. It's not, and he even said about last year, he goes, "There's nothing I can do about it. It's in the past."
Yep.
You and I talked about it today. He's had a couple of injuries that they were whatever, no big deal. No, he is not the PEF. I don't know if he's a 2-year member or not. The questions are beginning to get ridiculous, almost more ridiculous than anything else that we brought up. Or as somebody else put it, number of days in which this show has not gone off the rails in a row.
We're
back to zero.
Now we have to erase that one now.
Without a work accident.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Appreciate you. We'll do it again tomorrow after another day of OTAs, and hopefully we're going to get a chance to talk to Broderick Jones, Jalen Warren, and Minka Fitzpatrick, and others who weren't available today for various reasons.